This review covers the AMT Touch-Tone Terror Wheel Stander Kit. It's a 125 scale kit from AMT, number 1389. Now, AT&T's Bell system introduced the touch-tone dialing phone system in 1963. It rapidly replaced the old-age rotary dial phones that had been used for decades. And this is a 4-in-1 kit based on the 1966 release by IMC of the Little Red Wagon. Now, that was an actual truck based on the Dodge A100 pickup that featured wheelies. In other words, it rode on the back two wheels all the way down the drag strip in the quarter mile. Now, it also produced the first touch-tone version soon after that, and AMT has reissued it. Now, this is a skill level 2 kit released in 2023, and it contains 209 parts molded in white, chrome, and clear with water slide decals and vinyl tires. Now, the kit was based on old tooling, so it needs some cleanup. There's a lot of flash. Not a big deal, but it has to be done for a nice look. And when you're done, model finishes about 7 3/4 inches long for the Touch-Tone Terror with the tailgate down. And it's 3 1/4 inches high and 3 inches wide. Here are the parts for the kit. As we mentioned, there'll be some cleanup and, ejection pin marks, parting lines, etc. But you'll also find a whole lot of extra pieces here because of the 4-in-1 versions. You can see a full set of tires there for stock and then 2 slicks for drag. There's 2 separate engines. The Touch-Tone Terror has a 426 Hemi in it, but it also comes with a standard V8. And you can see the chrome tree there. It looks pretty nice. The windows are pretty clear, although they're a little bit thick. And nicely kept up mold, except for some of the obvious aging for us to enjoy again. The decals you see here are very extensive because they cover all 4 versions, and they're very nicely done. They come off of the sheet faster than just about any that I've seen, and the register is pretty good. So you can take your pick and choose your version. Now, one thing about the telephone version, though, the Bell telephone version of this, you might want to source a slant 6 motor for that unit, as they were usually employed by the telephone company trucks. Now you'll see here some markings that I made in red to remove portions of the body and the braces that you'll need to do in order to basically replicate the Little Red Wagon, which was the drag version. So you can see the white parts are really glossy as well, and if you weren't filling the bumper holes, you could use the whole thing as unpainted. But since the Little Red Wagon didn't have bumpers, I left them off and filled the holes. And there's also some obvious parting lines here that you'll need to, scrape off and sand smooth. And the rear has bumper holes too that you'll want to fill to replicate that the real vehicle. Now here you see the parts for the engine laid out, the block, the heads, oil pan, etc. Those are painted a red color. This is a custom and a custom build, and of course steel for the transmission. You got a chrome front end there, and then the parts go together. You've got an aluminum manifold, and that's set up for stacks. And distributor is painted kind of a flat black. You see it here on a stand, and this is the array for the injector stacks, the chrome valve covers, of course, and the headers. It's a pretty interesting and nice representation of a racing Hemi engine. As you can see here, you've got the little dust covers on top as well, which is a nice touch. So it'll make a fine addition, and it'll power your Touch-Tone Terror just fine. Here are the parts for the chassis. You see we've got leaf springs and a kind of a solid axle up front. This was kind of standard on the old trucks, and it's been painted a flat black color. Now you can see here the front axle's been placed in the front leaf springs. And by the way, make sure that you scrape off any paint or chrome plating for any of the parts that you want to glue together for good adhesion. And so here's that the rear subframe with the axle housing, the pumpkin back there, and the engine is getting staged because that gets mounted mid-engine in this vehicle. So get that ready and put together the subframe and add the completed chassis. Add that to the completed rear chassis subassembly. And now you can align that rear sub assembly to the main frame and glue that together, and you've got a completed chassis. Next we'll work on the floorboards here, the lower portion of the body, and you see that filler plate that gets added to the front part ahead of the engine. And here's the driver's seat, and you can assemble that, the front and the seat back together. There'll be a seam there. You can clean that up as well if you like. Now here you see the floor has the filler piece in place, and the completed seat and its base and seat belt are shown here, and those will go in just shortly. Before we do that, I want to point out something that's lacking in the instructions. The gas pedal gets put in place there, of course, on the floorboard, but there are two holes in the floor, even though it looks like there's only one in the instructions, and the pedal needs to be put into the right side hole there. Now here are the parts to build the roll cage, which we'll do next, and you'll have to scrape the paint off those little posts that are on the ends in order to glue this together properly. So now it's time to assemble the interior. The seat, the gas pedal, of course, and the roll cage are all put into place now. So here is the dashboard, and I'm showing this as a separate piece from the rest of the interior because it mounts to the body after the hinge plates are put in place, and the gauges and the glove box lid aren't used on the Touch-Tone Terra version. And there's a support for the steering column, a push-button control for the transmission, and a tack. Difficult to see, the hinge plates have been added here. They're at the tips of the arrows pointing outward. And you can see then after that the dash is added. The tachometer there is in the middle of the photo. You can see that chrome piece that's attached to the top of the dash. I painted the body white. As I said, some body work was done, so I had to repaint it, and including the back end. Now the interior there, of course, painted flat black along with the interior parts, and so that's set to dry. As you see here, the interior of the tailgate's a black portion, and the interior also flat black like I mentioned, but the body's been finished up and painted now. And now it's time to assemble the steering wheel and column. They're painted gloss black, but also note that the shifter and the turn signal levers aren't used on the wheel stander vehicle, so I left those off. Now this part of the instruction shows the steering column going into the hole next to the gas pedal, which is the left hole. So just keep that in mind so that you know the arrangement of those units on the floorboard. And so here you see the door hinges, the doors and the hinges for that, and the frame for the glass, the window glass, side windows, wasn't found on the Little Red Wagon, the actual car, so I removed that and used that to represent the Touch-Tone Terra version that would have been real. And so those were removed, and the parts are, as you see, painted appropriately. So here's a good look at the hinged door. You can see how the hinges are arranged and set, and that's applied to the front portion. And then the door, of course, will close appropriately. So make sure that that swings back and forth properly. So these parts are staged up to finish up the back end there and the bed, and of course you've got your fuel tank there as well. Another change that you see here is that the tailgate, of course, is stationary with those rods down in the down position, and the chute is back there. Now, it was on the Little Red Wagon, so this should have one too. So I went ahead and applied that to the tailgate for accuracy. Here you see the grill and the headlight covers, and scraped the chrome off where those will be glued to the front end of the body. And now you see the grill and headlight covers in place, and paint the parking light lenses chrome or silver, as the Little Red Wagon had aluminum in the place of those lenses. But also note that the decals have been added. They go on very nicely, and they conform to the body's contours and panel lines just perfectly. Just be sure to use plenty of warm water on the body when you're putting them into place to make sure they're in the proper position. And then squeeze out any water or air bubbles that get under the decal sheets. And here you see laid out the wheels and tires. It also has brake drums and retainers. They're shown here. They're solid vinyl tires with some sidewall detail, but those weren't picked out, or as pretty much they had black walls for most of your racing vehicles, specialty ones. The front tires, the standards, are solid, and the rear tires are hollow, but they're not real flexible. So you'll have to assemble the wheels by, pressing the inner and outer portions into the wheels. Make sure you scrape that chrome off so the glue will stick when you put those pieces together. Now, like some of the older kits, the spindles are just press fit onto the front axle, and then the tie rod slips onto both of those to allow for posable steering. Assembly is completed, but look at what you've got left over for your parts stash. There's just a whole lot of different pieces here, including a complete V8 engine, some tires, some wheels, etc., etc. Well, there you have it. Your model is complete, and this classic model will make a great addition to anybody's shelf, especially alongside the Little Red Wagon, which is its mentor, so to speak. And here you see it on the wheelie stand, just like it would be if it was going down the track. And if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf.
Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.
This review is brought to you in part by Ryder's Hobby Shops, where the fun begins. Stop in to one of Ryder's 2 convenient Michigan locations, where you'll find a full range of the latest hobby products, supplies, parts, tools, and paint. You'll find aisles and aisles of scale model kits, RC models, model rockets, Warhammer gaming, and railroading products. Stop in at Ryder's today and tell them Doug sent you.